All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a video that hasn't really been requested, but I'm seeing it online a lot. People are wondering T66 or T67, C76, 66, 76, and people are asking which one, why. So I figured, why don't I make a video? We have both. I have hours on both. I have more on this one than that one, but either way, we'll go through and we'll talk about everything between the two of them and which one I would choose and some of the things I like about each one and some of the things I don't like about the other one. So let's get after it. All right, so in this video, I plan on going around both machines, showing you some of the things I like and don't like. This is kind of a follow-up to my other video, T66 versus the 76, which is just a first look at both. That machine was a new demo when we did that video, and this one we had just had a couple hundred hours on it when we did that. Now we're pushing 500 hours on this one, and that one's about 200 hours, and we're halfway through the year. This one's a year old. That one's just 6 months old, so they've been hand in hand a lot. So do a couple different things. Like I said, walk around, talk about all the different things. One's got 5 torsion suspension. This one's got solid mount suspension. This one's got multi-bar tracks. This one's got C-bar pattern tracks. This one's got clear side enclosure. This one's got the regular mesh screen. And I think that's kind of some of the bigger things between all of them, between the two that are different. But I'm also going to do all those items I talked about, and then we're going to lift the cabs up and take a look underneath the cabs and see what those look like. The differences underneath there and where I see some fault points in both and some of the good things they've done. So let's get after it. All right, so let's start with this T66. All right, it's a 2,450 pound lift capacity. It weighs about 9,000 pounds. This machine has wide track on it. We've already covered that in some of these videos. This might be redundant for some of you who've been around watching for a little while, but I feel the need to cover it again because it's a new video. So if you're doing research on it, maybe you watch my other videos. I did a detailed walk around on this thing, pointing out everything. This oil sight glass continues to be a problem because we can't see what the line is. It's covered in mud right now, or it's got mud caked in there all the time, which seems to be a problem for being able to see it, right? Love the machine, so don't make this sound like I'm just bashing it, because I love everything about it besides these couple things that I'm kind of being, really picky about, because it's, that's how we as humans work, I think. We just nitpick whatever we want, but just take it for what it is. I'm just pointing out some of the key things in my mind that are issues and some things that are great. Visibility on this thing, phenomenal. With the clear side, they eliminated that link that was here, which I think is now back here, that same link. Maybe, possibly, I don't know for sure. But anyway, there's no bar there anymore. Makes visibility at the side awesome. This is a solid mount suspension. This is my personal choice for grading work. It keeps the machine real stable and smooth and doesn't throw off your grade like the 5-link does, or the torsion suspension or whatever. The machine's extremely stable when it's grading. Through here you can see this light is soil conditioned, and it's really, it keeps it smooth, right? You hit a little bump or something, gets a little off, you could totally mess yourself up if you had suspension on it. So my personal choice, solid suspension is the way to go in my mind. Now, one thing I will note about these T66s, the tracks don't seem to self-clean that great, like I was hoping they would with this new design. Right, they got a bar right here, or a plate that makes a connection, holds dirt there. This cover right here for the hydraulic lines is pretty close. Doesn't let much fall through, so the self-cleaning suspension really isn't that great in my opinion on this particular machine. Maybe on some of the larger ones it's better, but I blame it specifically on this cover here. I think that thing really tends to hold a lot of material. Moving back to this sprocket design, and somebody else pointed it out, they're so happy Bobcat switched to this. To change your final drive oil, it's just simply taking out 2 bolts, draining and filling. Now, Bobcat also makes a properly measured out container to refill this, right? I believe this takes 12 fluid ounces. They sell it in 12 fluid ounce bottles. Or they sell another one for a different machine. It takes 8 fluid ounces. It's already portioned out for you properly. You just gotta squirt it in there and you're good. Drain it all the way and then put your fresh fluid in there and you're good to go. No more, you don't have to measure it or, you know, get a quart size and down, figure it out, 12 ounces. Just buy the bottle the way it is. One huge improvement, which makes maintenance a lot easier, grease fittings are all on the outside edge now. Hang on, the camera's not focusing. All right, you see every fitting here, down here, all of them. Really easy to get to, which really makes greasing nice. Now, besides this one down in here, they give you a hole to send your tube for. But for some of us that use lock and lube, it's hard to get it on that angle. A, for lock and lube won't fit through this. And B, with the way that gun is set up, you can't get in there. And I don't know if it's possible, but what I'd like to see, it's not really possible, is it? I was going to say, if they put a little lead on this, a little rubber lead or something, or even like a grease fitting with a 90 or point it back or something, but the more I look at it, I don't know if it'll clear down in there behind that cylinder rod. I just wish there was a better way to grease that. It's kind of a pain, to be honest with you. I don't know. Whether it be putting a grease fitting not recessed and putting a grease fitting up here and pushing it down that way. That probably wouldn't be the best because it's only going to get one side. But grease fittings, a lot easier to do. Now, this hydraulic fill, kind of a pain sometimes. It's an awkward position. You're going to need a funnel to get in there to fill that. It's nice and protected. I like how it's out and open for us to get to. But this cover is kind of weird looking. And it's just awkward. You got to have a funnel. Cabin air filter seems to plug up quite a bit. And air filters on this machine in general seem to plug up quite a bit. Quite often. I see it online. People are talking about air filters plugging up. I don't know why. Why does this filter plug up so much more than the other ones did when it's 3 times the size? I guarantee you I ripped that air filter out. Well, actually, you'll see. I blow it out in this video. It's kind of nuts, right? And that's already been changed 3 times this year, trying to keep up with it. Overall, at the back, nice big screen up top. It's keep my hydraulic temperatures extremely low, right? My hydraulic temperatures never get above 165 degrees compared to the M series. Sometimes on a hot day with an attachment flowing like a brush hog or soil conditioner where you got tracks needing hydraulics, you got the arms, you got everything, the attachment running hydraulic power. It was running 215 to 230 sometimes. Lower hydraulic temperature has been huge in this machine. It's awesome. And come that lower hydraulic temperature, that lowers the entire temperature of the machine, which is obviously better for it. But at the same time, I think it consumes less fuel. This T66, I get about 12 hours of use out of it with a tank of fuel, which is fantastic. That's 2 full working days, right? Because I don't really call an 8-hour workday a full 8 hours to run the machine. You got downtime in between, whether you're greasing, fueling up, taking lunch, loading, unloading, all that kind of stuff. You really can probably only get about a 6-hour, 6.5-hour productive day out of the machine, just barreling on through, in my opinion. So 12 hours worth of fuel, for me, is 2 days. That's one less trip we got to make out here with a fuel truck to fill this thing up, which has been great. Moving into the back here. You guys have all seen it, how this works back here. I think it's a much better setup than what they had before. Well, maybe not to some extent. I've never had any fuel tank problems, so that wasn't a big deal for me. They put the fuel tank up on the side rather than underneath to save on maintenance costs. No more fuel strainer. It's got an electric pump for fuel. No more primer bulb. We'll see how long that turns out. Longevity. I think the biggest thing in here is there's enough room to get on there to change the oil. The filters are huge in all cases. The oil filter's pretty big, and the fuel filter's big, and the air filter's huge. So we've extended the life of those to a 700-hour oil interval, which is great for downtime without having to stop mid-season for an oil change. Just barrel right on through, which will be nice. We can repair and do that kind of service work in the summer. Now, one thing that I've been real adamant on this machine about keeping up on is keeping these radiators clean. I like to rinse them out with a garden hose, right? And all the water goes right down in the engine compartment. But in reality, if it rains, the water's coming down in here anyway. So I like to take that cover off. I rinse the radiator out. I let all the water come down, and then I will flush the pan out. Underneath, there's a tray that comes out, 4 bolts, and they're 15 millimeter. They come out, and everything will flow out the bottom. You just got to hit the machine on level ground. I think I'm going to cover this later on in the video about this thing getting clobbered up with debris, and this mesh hasn't been a problem yet, but I'm curious to see if it's going to continue to be a problem or affect my cooling in any way. This is something else I like to clean out for the air conditioning. Coolant. A lot of people had problems with coolant. I saw using up coolant. Both of these machines both went through coolant in the first 150 hours. I had to buy a jug, just carry it around. It would just be low. Now, now they're both fine. I haven't had to add any to this machine in quite a while. And now this one's got its service hours on it. It's good to go. Let me see what else we got here. Automatic ride control. I like that a lot. That's a big thumbs up on that. That's one of my top. Actually, besides this clear side enclosure, automatic ride control is by my number 2. Also on this machine, we did have a joystick replaced under warranty. No big deal. It just kind of stinks because when I needed to use the machine with the hydraulic attachment, it wouldn't work, which set me back on downtime. But my dealer was able to get that back and fixed. Another thing to note while we're in the cab real quick in terms of maintenance stuff, there's the lower arm release. If the machine dies up in the air, you can release the arms and lower them down. Right below that is a fuse panel. Pretty much houses just fuses for the cab. I went in there today. It's kind of a tricky one. It's kind of tricky to work behind that seat because of the way these joysticks are set up. And then also right behind the seat, you got a little manual holder, little slip-in tray for all your manuals to go in, which is nice. Just to keep it right in the machine. Cup holder's nice. There's a fair amount of leg room in here. I do feel like the lap bar is a little close. I'm a bigger operator. I'm about 250. With the seat all the way back, the lap bar is just a little close still. I wish there's a little bit more room with that. But I got to just work to keep myself in shape, I guess. So that's the T66. Moving over to the T76 here, it's a much larger machine. As if you can already tell, I think you're probably sitting here trying to decide between the two. Right, you got big. I mean, look at how much room, how much space there is behind the cab. A lot of material back there versus this one. About the same size as the cab. We've already talked about something, some of the same hitters on that machine as this one. Some of the other things I want to point out. There's a lot more room in here for the sight glass. You can actually get in there and see it. This is wide track as well, with 5-link. This one seems to drain a little bit more. There's more room down below there for the tracks. Stuff seems to fall out a little bit better than on the 66 with the solid mount. I don't know. I don't think that's because of the 5-link. I think it's because of the width of the machine and how much spacing there is with the track now. There's a lot more room for stuff to fall out. Similar problem with the air filters on this one. They seem to have a very short lifespan. Even the cab, there's a cabin air filter behind the seat too, recirculation filter. I found those to be extremely full of like lint and cottonwood and water, making I had no air conditioning blowing in this machine at one point. It was just no flow of air, cold air, but nothing was coming through the filter were plugged. One thing I want to note down here, right? You got these self-draining cylinder holes. Material seems to stick to the end of the cylinder where you grease it, which isn't favorable. It is what it is, I guess. I like to just keep things flushed out and clean. You'll see I'm going to go underneath the cab of these machines and flush them all out. That's something I would recommend doing annually, just because you don't want debris and material accumulating down there. It's a lot easier to clean a little bit of dust off than it is to clean off a bunch of mud that's caked in. If you clean it off regularly, you should be able to extend your service life without having problems with either electrical or hoses rubbing on something and wearing out. That's my whole thing with it. All right, so the $1 million question: T66, T76, which would I choose? And I'm an expert, okay? I'm an expert in my own opinion. So this is my opinion. Take with it however you want. But if I had to choose between the two, again, let's say you wanted to add a third machine, I would pick the T66 every single time. The biggest thing is the power to weight ratio, right? They're both 74 horse. This thing is a lot more powerful, it seems like, for what it's worth than that machine. The T76 is underpowered. It's huge. It's big in weight. Unless you need the lift height and the lift capacity, I would go 66 every day. No doubt in my mind. The 76 is good for hauling big materials around and moving big things, but it's not very nimble. It's kind of big and clumsy. It's a bull in a china closet. And for anybody who says that machine's a replacement for the 650, I disagree completely. I don't think that's very accurate. They totally mess with these machines. They're not even the same as what they were. There is no replacement for the T650. The T650 is the T650. Fact is, this machine's 10 inches longer, weighs over 1,000 pounds more. It's taller and just as wide as the 650. How is a machine that is exceeding it in every single category the same machine? It's not. And I'm not saying the 66 is the replacement for the 650, but the 66 is a lot closer than the 650 is than the 76. To me, the 66 is a lot more easier to control. It just, the hydraulic power is fine. I haven't had a problem with that. It can lift whatever I need to lift. For the most part, it's a little bit wobbly when you get right to that max. But for everyday use and operations around, the 66 is my way to go for sure. Now, the 76 does have a better ride if you're just driving on blacktop all the time with the 5-link. And I don't even know if that has to do with 5-link as much as the multi-bar tracks. If I were to build a machine, both these machines were on the lot when we bought them. If I were to build a machine, I would build one just like this and possibly add multi-bar tracks. That's the only change I would make. 5-link to me isn't that great. It's over talked about. It's a cool system, maybe for the right guy. But for me in landscaping, when we're trying to grade lawns and make things smooth and level, that just has way too much twist and torque on the whole suspension. You could have something on grade perfectly the way you want it, and then you let off the bucket, and now it's totally messed up because the machine sprung back. I just like the size of the 66 a lot more. Like I said, 76 is underpowered, which is understandable because it's got 74 horse. It requires emissions after 75 or at 75 and above. So what I understand what they did, they put the most powerful engine they could in without emissions, which makes sense. Okay, fine, but it just doesn't seem like it's properly set. Something's not right to me. That's why I'm picking the 66 hands down every time. All right, so to wrap things up, we're going to finish off by showing you underneath the cabs and some of the things I see underneath the cabs that become a problem. But to wrap things up, like I said, I'm picking the 66 every single time versus the 76. Unless you need that power for lifting, or you need the lift height or the lift capacity, the 66 I think will better suit you. Although everything's a little bit more compact and tighter in there, I like how things are more open on the 76 in terms of maintenance. The 66 is a better operator's machine. That's how I'm kind of looking at this. If you're a mechanic, you're going to like the 76. It's bigger, wide open, better service points. If you are an operator, you're going to like the 66. If you're an owner-operator, I'm going to pick the 66 every time. Even though those little things that kind of piss me off are there, like I said, the 76 is just a big dog. It's just too big for some stuff, I feel like. You know, with the weight over 10,000 pounds, now it's getting tight to being able to fit on your regular 14,000 pound trailer, you know, versus this. Plus, then you throw an attachment on there, you're done. I think when people put attachments on trailers and stuff like that, they forget to account they weigh something. Most attachments I have weigh over 1,000 pounds. So put that 10,000 pounds plus one attachment, not even a bucket. Just to say that soil conditioner's on there. That's about 1,200 pounds. So what are we at? We're almost at 1,200 pounds, 12,000 pounds at that point, right? 11 to 12,000 pounds. Yeah, you're pushing it on that 14,000 pound trailer there, buddy. So that's what I think so far. So yeah, let's go take a look underneath the hood, or the cab in this case. Oh, one other thing I want to mention before we get into wrapping this up. I just noticed this today, right? I got to change a fuse, I believe. I got an attachment that's not working because the wiring harness got damaged. I think it popped the fuse. In order to change a fuse, you got to lift the cab up, or pull this cover off. But there's no room to get back here for nuts and bolts. So I think I'm gonna have to lift the cab up tomorrow to change a fuse. That's not favorable. Mind you, the old machines, you always had to have some sort of socket to be able to change a fuse. But lifting the cab up is another thing. I mean, that just seems so over excessive. Like, I just wish they would have found a better place to put that, you know? Those simple things. A fuse takes seconds to change. Now I gotta lift the cab up. 2 bolts, not a big deal, but you gotta have the tools is the bigger problem. You gotta walk back to your truck, blah, 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 blah. You don't have them. You know, you probably got the wrong size. So, yeah, that's not favorable either. I just noticed that today because I need to change it. And I can't even change it because I don't have the right tools. All right, so I'm under the cab of the T66. I already started rinsing this out, but I am shocked at how much mud there is underneath this thing. I haven't lifted this cab up and cleaned underneath here yet, so this is the first time. But look at all the mud right there. And this was all full of mud. This battery was completely covered in dirt. Up along this edge here was all full of mud. That's all full of mud there. I've already rinsed off a bunch of that. The tracks must be spinning around and throwing it in the cab, because it seems like it's really heavily piled up right there and right there. So yeah, maybe it's a maintenance thing. Maybe twice a year, I should lift these cabs and clean the dirt out. It's bad. I'm really shocked, because I just had the cab up on that machine, the 76, and meanwhile it's a lot newer. It's still not. I'm just shocked at how much mud there is underneath this thing. So yeah, be proactive. Get those cabs cleaned. All right, I got the cab down now, so I'm investigating why there's so much mud in the cab. I'm thinking when the track comes around, it throws everything in there. All right, look at that gap. I can fit my whole finger in there. That's pretty big. And with how close this track is, there's really nowhere for the mud to go other than forward and in when you drive forward. Compared to this one, there's a good amount of room here. And this gap is a little tighter. I can't fit my finger through that, same finger. So that is one thing about the T66 that I just now realized. Cleanliness and keeping that under the cab clean with this. Big problems. All right, while I'm already over here, I got the cab up on the 76 now. I'm just gonna point out some of the componentry I failed to when I had the 66 up, and that one's already gone now. That had to go to a job. So I'm just gonna show you some of the big differences underneath the cab, and it's actually a nice layout. There's a lot of room. I mean, you could stand up in here and have some good access to some of the main components. Now, on this machine and these new R-Series machines, the battery is up under front here, and it's got a nice red wire loomed, and it's zip tied and bolted down. It's secured very well. The ground is right here. On this one's right here. All right. And there's a couple, looks like fuses or relays or something down here, or a fuse block of some sort. And then all your power goes all the way up to there. Now this red wire here is actually going back to a jump stud in the back of the back door. So if you need to jump it, you don't need to lift the cab up, even though it's not that hard. They made it a lot easier by moving the mounting bolts to the outside. There's a bolt there, there's a bolt there. 2 nuts come off. I think they're 3/4. Same size as the other ones. They were 3/4 inch nuts. And you just use a socket. And it's a lot easier than the other ones. You used to have to fish in there and then work it back and forth. And there was never enough room to do much. You kind of needed a ratcheting wrench because you couldn't fit a socket and ratchet in there. These ones are wide open. It's really nice. Another thing you notice is the cab goes up. The feet go up with it. It's all enclosed, which is nice because it keeps a lot of the mud out. You just got to remember to vacuum your floor out. I don't know if there's a drain down below. Actually, it's probably what this is right here. Oh, look at that. You learn something new every day. There's a drain right there. So if you want to rinse out the cab, like the floor pedals or whatnot, just a big rubber grommet comes out and you got a big opening. There's a drain right there. 2 bolts in the front, I believe. And that pan will drop out. There's also another pan in the back, 4 bolts. That's your service pan for your oil filter and drain. Or not filter, but just the drain. What I'm doing right now is I brought them in because I want to clean underneath the cabs. You saw the 66 had a lot of debris underneath it. That was very unexpected to me. I had no idea. What actually drew my attention to it was I had to lift this cab up a couple weeks ago to do some brush hogging. The machine died. I had to replace the swash plate sensors. Or not us, but the warranty replaced them. But I had to come down here and unplug them so I could get the machine out of the field. So that's when I had my first real experience in here, and I realized how much dust there was the back wall was coated, all the electrical lines, the hydraulic. Everything was just coated with debris and dust. So I said I want to get in here and rinse these out. And in the last couple of years, I've made it a point that I want to get in here and do a heavy cleaning on these things. I like to wash out the radiators with low pressure water. Just get all the dust and dirt out of them. I clean out the evaporators and the heater core and keep that nice and clean. I can keep some good airflow in the cabs. It just makes it that much better. Another thing about these 76s, R series, right? They eliminated that bar that was through here like that and lifted up with the machine. Now you can dive right in here when you got to work on something if you got to. There's a hydraulic filter down here, it looks like. There's quite a few hydraulic filters on this thing. I have to check to see what the exact number is. But I've at least located 3. There's one down there. You can see it just above my finger. I'm thinking there's one right inside there with the 2 nuts and the cap on top. That black cap, I'm thinking that's another filter. And then there's a filter on top of the cooling fan. I don't know, I'm thinking they're all different, but they're all hydraulic filters. Now there is quite a difference in look underneath here compared to the 66. I don't know if it has anything to do with the 5-link, but the amount of open space right there, and for debris to fall and shred off, there's a lot more room on this machine than on the other one. So my rule of thumb at this point is, if you're a mechanic, the 76 is the machine you're going to like more than the 66 because everything's so compact. But if you're an operator, I think you're going to like the 66 a lot more. So, if you're an owner-operator who does your own maintenance, it's probably a tough decision. But I think I'd still pick the 66. You just got to keep up on the cleaning. Because, for me, rusted hose lines and dirty fittings and stuff like that, bad connections, all come from lack of being clean. If things are clean, and my theory is that they're clean at least, and not buried in debris and dirt, there's probably a better chance they're not going to fail. So if I can take 2 times a year, lift the cabs up, flush all the dirt out, clean the radiators out, and just keep up with it and get the light work done more often than having to do a major cleaning. Look at all that. That came out of, that was off the track, but all this mud was all inside the 66. I filled this thing up, the shop vac up 3 times with water that I was sucking out of this thing from trying to flush it out. It's absolutely crazy. I flushed this out, right? This, I think I took a video of me cleaning this out on the 66. A lot of cottonwood stuff seems to get stuck in here. It helps to just flush it out every once in a while. You can see the inside of my engine's pretty clean. I like to rinse it out a couple times a year. It doesn't take long. It's like 15 minutes. you know, keep this, here's the jump stud I was talking about. But anyway, keep this bottom pan clean, keep the oil drain clean, all that stuff. Just keep the dirt and dust off it, because it's easier to clean a little bit of dust off than to clean a bunch of mud out, because I've done that before. That's not fun. There's the other filter I was talking about, hydraulic filters. So many. Alright, so while I got this cab up real quick, I'm just going to point out some of the main components. You got your hydraulic tank, slate glass on the side. This one's kind of tucked in and hidden very well. A lot of room to be able to see it compared to the 66. So that supplies your pump, right? And then from there, your pump goes inward. These are the lines coming to your tracks. Then that goes up to this valve body, which is then controlled through the joysticks and runs all your other stuff. You can see the lines going out that way and lines going out that way. Those go back for the lift arms, right? You got cylinders back there, and then one of them's got to run up. What side did this come up? I'm thinking, all right, so for the tilt function and the power bob attach, everything probably runs up this side and comes out the hole here and does this thing up here, while everything in this tube is for the auxiliary hydraulics. So that comes up and just deadheads right here with the auxiliary hydraulics. So it's pretty easy to identify what does what and how things work. I mean, you got tank to pump, pump to wheel motors, pump to valve body and controller, and then out from there. So it should be pretty easy to identify. And they got a lot of steel lines in here, which means hopefully longevity should be really good compared to a lot of rubber. And everything's tucked in really nice. There's not a lot of... They've really cut down on the hoses, which is really nice, or they've made them steel. So you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. I mean, there's not many hoses in this thing anymore, which is great. So to wrap things up, thanks for watching the video, guys. I know this one's kind of long and boring, and I did a lot of talking. And take it for what it is. I have both. That's my honest opinion. Multi-bar tracks on the 66. Maybe even narrow track. Narrow track. The tracks are just too wide on this thing. Or not too wide, but they're just... There's not a big gap there, okay? They're rubbing on the loader arms, that kind of thing. I don't know. That'd be a discussion for some other time, I suppose. But thanks for sticking around. I don't know how long this video was. 35, 40 minutes. I can certainly talk about it some more if you guys want, or you guys have questions. Let me know down in the comments below. I will answer them on what I think if you got questions, specific questions about either machine. But remember, if you like the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit the thumbs down button. I don't really care. Do whatever you want. It lets me know that you like, dislike the content that I'm putting out on these Bobcat machines and any other equipment that I'm reviewing, or any job that we're doing. So thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one.